Just when you thought it was safe to step back on solid ground, they're back and hungrier than ever. Hey everyone, welcome back to Movies on the Brain. I'm Jayson, and today I'm returning to the wild and wacky world of underground monsters and explosive problem solving. It's time to revisit the Tremors franchise with Tremors 2 Aftershocks, directed by S.S. Wilson and starring Fred Ward, Chris Garton, Helen Shaver, and Michael Gross. The sequel digs deeper, blows things up bigger, and doubles down on the creature chaos. So grab your seismographs and some dynamite because we're diving back into the dirt. Tremors 2 Aftershocks was released straight to video on April 9th, 1996 and had a budget of $4 million. Unfortunately, I'm not able to find any other numbers. Years after the events of the first film, Val McKee has moved away and married Rhonda Lebeck, while Earl Bassett has squandered his fortune on a failing ostrich ranch. He is approached by Carlos Ortega, who informs him that graboids are killing his workers at his oil field in Chiapas, Mexico, and hires him to hunt them down. Earl initially declines, but Ortega's taxi driver, Grady Hoover, convinces Earl to change his mind after mentioning that Ortega will pay $50,000 for each graboid killed and both join the hunt. Upon arrival, Earl learns that the company would pay him double if he caught one of the creatures alive. He also meets geologist Kate Riley, her assistant Julio, and a mechanic named Pedro, all of whom are scientifically investigating the graboids. Earl and Grady begin systematically killing the graboids by using remote-controlled cars rigged with explosives. Though their strategy seems to work, the vast number of graboids overwhelms them, and Earl enlists the help of Bert Gummer, who arrives with a deuce-and-a-half truck loaded with firearms and explosives. The next day, Earl and Grady are surprised by one of the graboids, causing them to drive backwards in a panic and crash the truck into an inclined ditch. Returning to where they saw the graboid, Earl and Grady find that the creature looks sick and non-aggressive, with all of its tentacles mysteriously dead. Realizing that they have one of the creatures alive, which Ortega offered $100,000 if accomplished, they call Pedro to come pick them up along with the graboid. However, the graboid later begins making horrific and painful sounds and is soon found dead with a huge hole torn open into its body. They see Pedro's truck approach from the distance, but it suddenly stops, prompting Eric, Grady, and Earl to investigate and discover the truck's destroyed engine as well as Pedro's remains. They make their way to a nearby radio broadcasting building which has similarly been destroyed, only to be met by strange bipedal graboid-like creatures. Earl successfully kills one as it charges him, but the two flee in a car they found as more of the creatures arrive. Meanwhile, Bert's truck is ambushed by a pack of these new creatures while returning to base. The following morning, the creatures have made their way to the oil refinery, where Julio is violently killed by one. Grady and Earl arrive before it can attack Kate, with Bert shortly arriving thereafter. Following a near-fatal firefight, it left him drained of ammunition. Through experimentation, the group discovers that these creatures, now dubbed Shriekers, are hermaphrodites that can replicate at an incredible rate after eating enough food. They also learn that the creatures cannot hear, unlike their predecessors, but rather see heat through their special infrared receptors on their heads. However, they are attacked by the Shriekers, who have discovered Bert's MRE food supply and have rapidly doubled their numbers in a matter of minutes. They run for Julio's car, but Bert accidentally disables it while killing a Shrieker. Hiding from the Shriekers, Bert is trapped in a bulldozer bucket, while Grady, Kate, and Earl are on top of an oil tower. The Shriekers work together in an attempt to climb the tower before Bert traps them in the storage shed with the truck. However, they discover rice flour is stored inside as well, enabling the Shriekers to continue eating and multiplying inside. Earl douses himself in CO2 from a fire extinguisher to hide his body heat and tries to find Bert's explosives among the Shriekers, who have multiplied into dozens of creatures. While the plan initially works, the CO2 quickly wears off and the Shriekers detect his body heat, forcing Earl to throw the detonator among Bert's supplies before escaping. The group manages to escape before a massive explosion devastates the entire facility, destroying all the Shriekers with it. In the aftermath, Earl and Kate decide to pursue each other romantically, while Grady suggests opening a monsters-themed theme park due to the money Ortega now owes them. Now let's look at the cast and some of their other roles they've had. Fred Ward as Earl Bassett. Before his passing in May of 2022, other roles for Fred Ward included Frank in The Wild Stallion, Sergeant Archibald Sparks in Exit Speed, and Sean Dunn in Summer Catch. Christopher Garten as Grady Hoover. Other roles for Christopher Garten include Mark Sparks in Let Us In, the sexy waiter Scott in Black Swan, and Mike in Flight Plan. Helen Shaver as Kate White. Other roles for Helen Shaver include Carolyn in the Amityville Horror, Rachel Corrigan in the TV show Poltergeist The Legacy, and Margaret Heller in Born to be Wild. Michael Gross as Burt Gumham. Other roles for Michael Gross include Stephen Keaton in the TV show Family Ties, Professor Tucker in Pizza Man, and Murray in Ground Control. Marcelo Tubbert as Senor Ortega. Other roles for Marcelo Tubbert include Gus in Spyro the Year of the Dragon video game, Max in Alpha and Omega, and Dr. John in Bad Therapy. Marco Hernandez as Julio. Other roles for Marco Hernandez include Butch in Riot, Alicio in Red Surf, and Hector in Ghetto Blaster. Jose Rosario as Pedro. Other roles for Jose Rosario include Mayor Arthur Caffey in Pride and Glory, Major D. Hector in The Wolf of Wall Street, and Harris the Bailiff in the TV show The Good Wife. Tomas Gonzalez Jr. as an oil worker. Other roles for Tomas Gonzalez Jr. include Vince in Speed, Julio in Running Scared, and Marcelo in Spencer Confidential. Already from the intro, you get the vibe that it's a horror film, which was a nice departure from the first film, even though it is still classified as a horror comedy, just like the first film is. Fred Ward somehow looks younger in this, even though this came out 6 years after the first film. I like that Earl and Val are legends after the first film, even to the point where they're in newspapers in Mexico. I do like how they wrote off Val, saying he got married and doesn't want to help, although it would have been nice to see Kevin Bacon in this. And as I'm reporting this on May of 2025, rumors are that they're working on bringing Kevin Bacon back to the franchise for another movie. I wouldn't be against that, although I got a lot of catching up to before that comes. I like how the super fan of Earl and Val is the one to get Earl to agree to go to Mexico to kill the Graboids. Such a fun little scene between Fred Ward and Christopher Garten. Val got his girl in the first movie, and just from their first introduction, it seems Earl may be getting his girl with Kate. Fred and Kate checking each other out is such a funny scene, but I like that we're getting some comedy before the tense stuff. The tracking and killing of the first Graboid is so cool, from the monster truck RC to the explosion, and even Earl using an umbrella to shield himself from the guts. Fun montage to Trouble by Travis Tritt on Earl and Grady killing some Graboids. After the montage, finding out Earl and Grady have earned $300,000 apiece just from killing Graboids tells me they've killed 6, if my math is right. If not, please let me know in the comments. And then finding out that Earl is going to invest 5% into CDs, and all that is pretty good writing, after finding out he didn't do that after the first time he encountered the Graboids. Shows he's gotten smarter. The Graboids have gotten smarter as well, it seems, with one dragging Earl's truck and stopping just short of the cliff, only to turn and go alongside it until he gets the truck on some rocks. So good to see Burt back, and I like how they wrote Reba off too, even though I enjoyed her chemistry with Michael Gross in the first film. A Graboid kind of situation is really the best line they could have come up with. Although I do like the scene when the score when the line is said. I really don't think that line was the best choice for the scene. I do like that it takes two movies to come to the conclusion that graboids are from Earth and older than dinosaurs. Bert showing up with a big truck and lots of explosives. It's not so surprising for Bert. Bert's first kill being excessive is comical but not surprising. But honestly, 4 pounds of C4 is a lot. Hearing the noises, the one graboid that wasn't moving is making is kind of creepy, but the sound design is absolutely great. Whatever came out of the graboid absolutely destroyed it. So much for the $100,000 for Earl and Grady. Whatever this new thread is, it has absolutely freaked Earl out, and the way Fred Ward is playing it is great. The CGI when the runner, which we later know as a Shrieker, is coming towards Earl and Grady isn't good at all, but I like how it looked when it sensed them. It's a very well designed creature. Julio's death was an unexpected one. When it happened anyway. I had a feeling we see at least one of the characters that aren't Bert, Earl, or Grady get killed. Bert looked rough when he comes rolling up on Earl, Grady, and Kate and saying he took out at least a dozen after the three Earl and Grady killed, and then guessing there's about 24 of those creatures, which they have now called shriekers, leaves less than a dozen, or it should be only that many. Bert actually capturing one alive isn't surprising in the slightest, but him having a hitchhiker was pretty crazy to see. Bert being correct about the infrared is pretty great, especially when we immediately get a shot of their heat signature as confirmation right after. Interesting that the Shriekers can replicate after eating enough food. Bert's rifle absolutely obliterating the Shrieker as well as Julio's truck, leaving Bert, Kate, Earl, and Grady stranded. Such an interesting dilemma. Bert's sarcasm when Grady is asking if he has any bullets left is comical, and Michael Gross is fantastic at his delivery. Awesome callback to the start of the film when Earl finds out Kate was a Playboy playmate he had pinned to his wall in his trailer. Earl getting the idea to covering himself in CO2 is genius, and I like that Grady tried to do it instead. I was getting anxious for Earl as he was trying to get to the bombs. Then Earl was smart to set the bombs and just run. Overall, it's an enjoyable follow-up to the first film. Not better than it is, but still pretty good. Now, some fun facts and trivia. The film was originally meant to take place in Australia on a budget of $17 million, with Kevin Bacon reprising his role in a wide theatrical release. When this idea approved, but only given a budget of $4 million, the script was loosely rewritten to accommodate the budget. Kevin Bacon and Reba McEntire were both written into the script and expected to return as their characters from the first movie. Reba would decline due to a massive tour she was appearing on at the time, and while Bacon showed interest, he ultimately turned it down to film Apollo 13. Universal Studios was pining for these two to return, and when neither did, the budget was dropped from $17 million to $4 million, and production was handed over to the direct-to-video division. To achieve the infrared view of the Shriekers, as seen in several scenes, the actors wore red suits and yellow stockings, then were shot in high-8 videotape and blown up to 35mm film. To add an additional grainy effect, the post-production video engineers then rendered the faces and bodies in different colors. Earl struggles with ostriches at the beginning of the film while attempting to get them to mate. His difficulty may lie with the fact that both of them are male. Female ostriches are noticeably shorter and gray. The scene with the baby Shrieker was created using a full-size Shrieker in a large cage, making the Shrieker look small. As a consequence, no actors could be shown at the same time as the cage and Shrieker. During post-production, the creators campaigned for the film to receive a theatrical wide release. Although unsuccessful, the film did play in limited theaters across the world, including the TCL Hollywood Theater, the Alfred Hitchcock Theater, and the National Theater in Tokyo, Japan. One of the full-scale graboids used in the film was a refurbished model that was used in the first film. The scene where Burt fights the Shrieker horde as it ambushes truck was actually scripted and entirely shot, but was cut from the final film. Director S.S. Wilson doubled as Gummer for the stunt sequences and jumped through the truck's windshield for a scene. However, the scene was ultimately deleted when the producers felt they couldn't get the CGI Shriekers to look convincing enough against the nighttime background. Earl points to a Playboy centerfold on his wall and says that it was Miss October of 1974. The real Miss October in 1974 was Esther Cordet, a brown-haired Panamanian, in contrast to the blonde Helen Shaver, who in the film is supposed to be the woman in the photo. The actual centerfold seen in the film is Miss September of 1970, Debbie Ellison. The sound of the Shriekers was created by mashing together the vocalizations of a whale crying with a crying baby. And that's it for my look at Tremors 2 Aftershocks, a film proving that there's always room for bigger monsters, louder explosions, and more outrageous fun beneath the surface. But don't worry, this journey through perfection is far from over. I'll be back digging through the dirt to cover every installment in the Tremor saga, all the way through to the latest and wildest entry, Tremors Shrieker Island. Thanks for watching Movies on the Brain. I'm Jayson, and I'll see you next time for even more subterranean chaos.